Welcome everyone, my name's Bea. I'm the Director of Customer Success here at Wazoku, and I'm joined by my colleague Abby, who's part of our sales engineering team. And we're here to tell you a little bit more about how you can use Wazoku to improve processes and ways of working, sharing some examples of what customers of ours are already doing, and then taking you into the platform to show you actually how you can configure these challenges and engage your audience, not just with the actual idea collection, with voting, with commenting, and get those great ideas from those early stages right through to a point where you can do something with it. So for those who are new to our webinar series, we're going to do a brief introduction into Wazoku and how we help organizations innovate with internal and external audiences. So really what we're here to do. How Wazoku is being used, as I mentioned, by customers to improve both processes and ways of working, and then walk you through a demo of how you can build an ideas program and manage this and incremental improvements on our platform. In terms of Wazoku, so we work with organizations globally, providing them with the software, the tools, the processes, and approaches to be able to capture ideas from audiences, both that within the organization, so communities of employees, frontline staff, those known to the organization, that might be your supply chain, your customers, and truly an open crowd. So as well as having the software and approaches, we can also bring solutions from our crowd of around 500,000 problem solvers globally. And the approach that we take, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about, is actually a challenge-driven innovation approach. So what this means is rather than going out and asking for every and any idea, it's taking your business challenges and presenting those to a crowd of people to engage them in coming up with solutions and, of course, incentivizing them to do so. So from a product perspective, our platform gives organizations the visibility and transparency and tools to manage ideas from those early stages right through to implementation and even post-implementation, and ensure that your staff, your customers, your suppliers, your partners, and even the world can see what's happening with ideas and can be part of your ideas management scheme anytime and anywhere. So I mentioned as I started about challenge-driven innovation. For those who are new to the approach, when we're talking about a challenge, we're specifically talking about putting problems or opportunities to a crowd, be that, as I said, a crowd that's within your organization or outside of it that truly matters. And of course, offering incentives to drive contributions. Now, this doesn't mean paying someone every time they come up with an idea. When we're talking about incentives, we're thinking about how can we motivate our different communities to be able to contribute ideas and develop those ideas and give exposure to senior leadership, the opportunity to develop those ideas and learn these skills. And then for different crowds, be that a totally external crowd, you might think about more of an IT transfer. So one of the things to think about when we're talking about challenge-driven innovation. So the process is always the same, and it's a process that even if you're not a Wazoku customer, we implore you to take this and think about it when you're looking to crowdsource ideas, and start off with a goal, your opportunity. This might be something big, such as we've got a net 50-0 target to achieve, right through to we've got a big budget that we need to reduce in terms of processes. We're going to talk a little bit more about that today. But taking that goal and breaking that down into these challenges or problem statements. The intent here is that we present our crowd with the opportunity to engage with a problem which is limited in scope and actionable. So when you're capturing these ideas, you really have the opportunity to do something with them, and you don't spend years in a darkened room going through ideas that you actually can't do anything with. So it's really about taking your goals and opportunities, breaking those down into challenges, and determining who are the right crowds, communities, audiences to help you solve that problem. And whether it's a big global problem or it's even quite a local problem, we really recommend that you go as broad as possible, because in every likelihood, there will be someone who has solved your problem in some way, shape, or form, whether that was at a previous organization, in a parallel role, or even in a different context. So recommend that as well as defining those challenges and thinking about who can help you with solving those challenges, we think about who is the right audience of people to help us in solving it. Challenges are then launched on a platform as a crowdsourcing challenge. Ideas come in, or more fully formed solutions, depending on what you're looking for. And those are then evaluated by SMEs. It might be multidisciplinary kind of panels, different teams, to be able to shortlist those ideas, select those ideas, and integrate those into the organization ways of working, taking that through a development process and actually ensuring that the value really is captured from all that hard work. Now, with this process, as I say, what it really does is ensure that you actually get good ideas out the other end, and it allows you to manage and scale your scheme so that as you're doing innovation on a more sustained basis, you can do it in a way which is more predictable, more easy to work with, and ensures clarity as to what you want from your crowds. Now, back to the topic of today, processes and ways of working. And just to quote what we can see here, if an organization is not continuously improving the way it performs processes, it will likely fall behind in the market. And I'm sure that rings true whether you're working in a small organization with 10 of you, right up to 100,000 people. We all have pressure on us, both internal and external, to ensure that we're working in as most effective and efficient way as possible to keep our customers happy, to keep our staff happy, and to keep up with the ever sort of changing demands that the world puts upon us. Now, of course, process improvement, and there's a long history of how it's operated in organizations right back from in the early 80s when we saw Kaizen introduced, right through to development of models such as Lean Six Sigma. And you all may have different ways of actually capturing those improvements to be able to ensure that you're as effective and efficient as possible. Now, of course, one way to do that is to dismantle a process and look at it. But what we recommend, and when we think about process improvement is crowdsourcing, is let's take the problems to the people who are actually within or working alongside those processes to get to the good ideas about how we improve it, because it's one of those age-old examples where many minds is better than one. And of course, there are many reasons you may want to engage your staff in capturing process improvements. For the benefit of the organization, as we know, there's a competitive advantage. If we can leverage the minds of our people who are using competitor products, who are, making purchases on a day-to-day basis, we can ensure that our organizations are remaining competitive and allowing us to sustain them. Of course, there's reducing time to market, and this is one of the key elements around taking a particular process or product and thinking if we were to incrementally improve each stage of that process, we can actually get things to market quicker and again, reduce costs. Another way that you can really benefit from using idea management, innovation management to improve processes around eliminating waste. And it's a remarkable, not just in terms of physical waste, but how much wasted time, wasted effort is happening in our organizations day to day. So running a challenge to identify where those problems are, where that waste is a great way to have an oversight of the problems, and then of course call for solutions on how to reduce it. And of course, finally, around increasing savings. So as our budgets are stretched every year, I'm sure that's true of all organizations, we're being asked to do more with less. Let's leverage the power of our crowd to help us in that effort and make life slightly easier for the people who have been tasked with that job. So in terms of this area and what we're seeing organizations already doing, first and foremost, we are seeing a lot of waste and repetition challenges. So this is just taking an organization view and trying to identify where there is waste or there is repetition in existing processes. And as part of digital transformation efforts, we're actually seeing that trying to understand what the problems are is as important as fixing those. We're seeing organizations who have identified a particular broken process as honing in on that process and actually trying to find the best way of solving it. So I don't know if it's true in the organizations we've got on the phone today, but things such as timesheets, accounting processes, they may be boring, they may be laborious, but actually, if you were to take a specific process and try and ideate around it, it's a great way of engaging people who work on that process to be able to come up with the solutions and actually get their buy-in around changing ways of working. Improving products. So we do this ourselves with our product. We have a customer community where you can come in and you can share suggested improvements for our product. We're also seeing it both in software and non-software products. Great way to be able to get hands-on user data around how we can improve things, benefiting, of course, the organization creating those, but also trying to drive a better customer experience. Ways of working. So again, a really popular topic over the last 18 months or so, because of course, the way in which we work and how we think about work has changed so much. So whether it's how can we ensure that we are supporting people working across different time zones, how can we allow for a flexible way of working? The nature of work in the organization is ever changing. So keeping abreast of those changes and involving people in your decision making is a great way to ensure that your staff remain happy and that you're actually fulfilling the needs of a healthy and ever-changing workforce. Communications. And actually, this is a funny topic because I often, back in the day, we used to think, oh, is communications one of the right challenges that you need to face? But actually, again, similar to ways of working, there's been a proliferation of different types of communications channels across audiences and organizations which are truly digital now. And we're all probably bombarded with emails, Teams messages, to a point where people don't actually know what's important and what's not. So a lot of different challenges coming up in the past 6 months to a year sort of ago, where we've been looking at those communications and thinking about how can we use them to change the behavior, which will in fact change ways of working in the future. And finally, the customer experience. So as well as the experience of our employees, it's also a great way to be able to understand not just solutions to customer problems, but utilize people who are on the ground, who are with customers day to day to really identify those pain points. And then once we have a better understanding of what the problem is we're trying to solve, is going out and finding solutions to those. So a couple of examples for you. And this lovely man, who is actually quite an old example, but I still think it's such a testament to how involving people in the process improvement challenges can truly leverage some fantastic ideas and a great employee experience. So this man who was working on a fish counter in Waitrose was seeing that actually he had 2 separate days. He was having to clean the fish counter one day and do the meat counter separately. And quite a simple idea really, but what he came back to the organization with was, we need to actually just do this on the same day. It seems that I'm unpacking everything, cleaning, getting all the cleaning things out, doing my clean, putting everything back, and then doing exactly the same next time. So why don't these counters are next door to each other? Why don't I just unload them all at the same time, do my cleaning, then I can put everything back and carry on with my day. So actually that was a time-saving piece for one person. They trialed it in a supermarket, and actually that resulted in around £500,000 worth of saving just by changing a cleaning schedule. Now, of course, if you were in a head office, you wouldn't know that that problem existed. So a great way to be able to say, what's a frustration on someone's day-to-day and how can we improve it, which is also ensuring that people really know, they feel part of something and can really hit those savings goals. And another one, again, a very simple idea, but one of the staff also at Waitrose, again, tasked with improvements and ways of working, saw that by sitting on the cashier desk and printing out receipts, that actually there was about 4 or 5 inches of white space on every receipt. She cut it up, she stuck it back together, took a photograph, sent it into the ideas scheme, and by reducing the amount of white paper was able to save about £100,000 a year. What Waitrose were fantastic are, and John Lewis continues to do, is piloting these ideas in 1 or 2 of their stores before rolling it out. But most importantly, recognizing the fantastic work of their people in actually making the experience not only better for the employees, but the customers as well. And another example of actually what organizations and people can do when you give them the chances to improve not just processes and ways of working, but the delivery of products and services. So a team from Aviva, a team in France, again tasked with a similar effort, is how can we improve our services, our products, our ways of working, and notice that actually they were really trying to engage it was essentially engage the wrong type of crowd in the wrong way. So they've been tasked with selling life insurance to people and trying their best efforts to do this in a digital way, but actually really trying to reach an audience that wasn't online, that wasn't on the internet every day. So it came up with a relatively low cost idea, and actually goes, everyone's going to the market every Wednesday. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in our van, we're going to take it along to the market, and that's where we're going to sell our product. So they did that, just a change in the way in which they were trying to sell their product, and were able to come out with some fantastic results and really sell more insurance there. So just a couple of examples of the types of ideas that can come out of your organization when you're thinking about improving processes, products, ways of working. And so I'm going to now hand over to Abby, who's going to dive into the Wazoku platform and show you actually how you can set up and manage a process improvement challenge by showing you how you can reduce waste and repetition.
Perfect. Okay, so everybody should now be looking at reducing waste with us. This is an example of an idea space that you could be utilising in order to run these cost reduction challenges. We'd recommend that you start off running one challenge, such as this one on reducing waste and repetition, in a time-bound manner. By running it time-bound first, it enables you to test the process, test how well you're getting ideas evaluated, how easy it is to keep your workflow healthy, and to whether you're getting engagement from the crowd. Potentially the challenge needs slightly reframing, a tweak to the title, and you can get more engagement. Once you're happy running that challenge time-bound and you've started to deliver back results into your organization and you can begin showcasing some of those successes, we'd then recommend turning this into what we call an always-on challenge. An always-on challenge is a challenge that's running in the background on your platform that people can always go to. They can always submit ideas, and it becomes a consistent theme within your platform. So, for example, here at Wazoku, we have a consistent challenge that's always on around improving the products that we deliver to all of you. Everyone in Wazoku is aware that it's always there, and it's continuously driving engagement to our internal tool. Alongside those always-on challenges, you can then have sporadic time-bound challenges around particular themes or areas of interest. So particularly this one on helping us to streamline our cybersecurity processes. These time-bound challenges can then be short spurts, delivering back successes and solving small problems quickly back into the organization. Having an always-on challenge next to specific time-bound challenges running at a particular cadence can also help you to drive engagement to both. So some people will come there aware of the always-on challenge, submit their idea, and they'll then find interest in a time-bound challenge that they weren't expecting but might have an idea to suggest. Or alternatively, when you're driving new comms, reaching new areas of your organization with specific time-bound challenges, they can then feed into your always-on challenge, becoming aware of an initiative that they might not have previously been aware of. So today we're going to look into the reducing waste and repetition challenge and a workflow that we'd suggest for this. What we find works well in process improvement challenges is a workflow where you're able to check if the idea works locally. For example, in the subject matter evaluation stage, such as what Waitrose were doing, trialing things in small stores, before escalating to a region, so trialing it in a wider area, checking whether or not it's viable for the wider market, and then finally signing it off in a further, more global evaluation. When people add their ideas, we advise having a short form. These are people on the front line, people who haven't got that much time in their day jobs. Potentially it's someone who's working on the shop floor, utilising their lunch break to scan a QR code or access an iPad in a centralised location. So a short form has a low barrier to entry, but should still allow you to capture the data points required in order to make an informed decision on the idea. We'd also recommend that you categorise these ideas. Categories are a great way of funneling ideas to the right people for evaluation. And if you're running a broader open process improvement challenge, which is always on, this can be an easy way to remove the friction in your workflow by funneling ideas straight to the right people for evaluation. Alongside this, something that we find increasingly important for running process improvement ideas is the costing of them. So a great way of doing this is to include an outcomes field. We wouldn't advise turning on the outcomes field for the idea creator, as they're people who are on the shop floor who may not know how to cost an idea for rolling it out across your whole organization or across a region of your organization. However, when you reach an evaluation stage with someone who has the required subject matter experience in order to provide a valid financial estimation, we recommend that you include that into the form. This will then allow you on your process improvement challenge to start seeing what's coming up through the funnel and to start reporting to senior leaders as to what you expect to see over the coming months in terms of savings realised, but also in how much you expect to be spending on implementing the ideas that are coming through the funnel. This can then also be plotted onto what we call a break-evens chart. So you can showcase to people in your organisation the cost that you've spent on implementing ideas, but also the benefits of that, the savings that you've realised and what you've seen across your organisation. Okay, and that's all from me. Does anyone have any questions on any of that?
Abby, just a question from me in terms of the evaluation. So what or how might someone look at the idea and evaluate a process change?
Yeah, so on an evaluation stage, you're able to have this configurable criteria. Ideally, this criteria should align to what you've showcased to the crowd as what a good idea looks like. So when you frame up a challenge, you should set expectations as to what you're looking for, e.g. implementable within 5 months, or it's going to cost below a certain amount. These criteria can then align to the evaluation criteria within the platform. So people are able to come in here, grant their subject matter, give their valid opinions, and also have a conversation with other evaluators on whether or not they should proceed to the next stage.
Lovely. And just to build on that in terms of starting criteria, so some of the things that you may want to think about is just doing a bit of a feasibility assessment up front. We don't necessarily need a really, really heavy idea kind of criteria at this point. It's to be able to sift out any ideas of which there might be duplicates. You also might identify some learning gaps. So having that initial evaluation will just allow you to filter out ideas which are worth progressing forward and keeping that as light as possible. Another thing that you may want to do in this process as well is think about the role that the crowd can help you play in prioritizing these issues. So as well as giving you a 5-star rating, that might be one of the options you choose to use. Later on in the process, you might choose to use, let's say, voting, giving tokens, giving votes to ideas to assess through the crowd the potential impact of that problem, and not necessarily ensure that they get the full say in what's implemented and what's not, but certainly taking the crowd's opinions and that capturing that data to help with the prioritization exercise. Lovely. Thanks, Abby. And we've got our first question come through. Thanks, Paul. So what non-financial idea benefit variables can be input? We would be looking for things like safety impact, CO2, environmental diversity, ethical. Have you got examples? So yes, what you can do when you are thinking about what questions you want to ask, you saw there were some free-form question fields, but you can also begin to build out lists so you can actually begin to sort and filter. We can also manipulate that functionality that you saw there around tracking and value tracking to think about how many tons of carbon might this idea be creating, or this problem be creating. So there are things we can do about the non-financials, both within the questions we're asking, but also in that functionality you saw there. Lovely. Any other questions? I think just a final word from me then, if any come in. So we're happy to support you with designing these processes. And so we talked about it really at the beginning of the demo, but our recommendation would be, if you haven't run a process like this before, is trying to identify a single process or an area of problems that you want to address first, and really running those challenges end to end. you'll get a sense of, which areas of your organization, are better at this perhaps than others, where we need to put some training in place before launching an always on scheme. So just to run that process through, make sure you're happy with it, and then begin to build the right governance and processes and put those in place to make sure that you can do this sustainably over time. Lovely. Well, we will, if there's no more questions, be finishing up for now. In terms of, actually, it's an important point, our next webinar. So for those of you who are joining us, we have weekly webinars. Our next webinar will be next week. Let me just share my screen, get the details of it. Lovely. So we are going to be looking at next Thursday using Wazoku to develop new products and services. So different type of challenge. We've run one quite similar to this early in January, but thinking about actually how can we use not just our employees, but how can we collaborate with different communities of people to develop new products and services. And then more of a best practice one on the week, the following week on February the 9th, where we'll be looking at incentivizing and recognizing contributions to your innovation program. So an opportunity there to learn a little bit more about how you can set up incentive schemes, what have worked well for different audiences, and just to share some tips and best practice. So thanks everyone for joining us today. The webinar recording will be available should you want to share it with anyone in your organization who's currently looking for ideas on improving processes and ways of working. Lovely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.